What's up, guys? Welcome back to Maestro Vapes. Today we're going to do a build video that people have been asking me about for a long time, or people have been telling me do the 18 gauge build for months and months and months. And I actually bought some 18 gauge wire around, I think it was around November, October-ish, and kind of did some builds with it. Didn't really love it. But I'm going to share the best build that I got from 18 gauge nichrome 80, okay? First things first, you got to remember, guys, this isn't an introductory build. You know, if you're new to building, definitely don't do this build. But if you've been building with 20 gauge nichrome 80, stuff like that, for a while, you want to take the plunge, you can try this one out. But I'm going to tell you, the resistance on this is just stupid low. Like, it's pretty low. And it's going to be, you know, outside of a lot of people's comfort limits for sure, okay? So know your batteries and yeah, just be safe. That's it, okay? Definitely, if you're new, I wouldn't jump into this build. There's no way, okay? The battery that I'm using for this is actually an eFest battery, which has 64 amp pulse, okay? If I was going to use this on an 18650, and I didn't have a Sony, like a VTC4, I would trust my Samsung 25Rs. But be careful because there are counterfeits out there, okay? Buy your batteries from a reputable dealer. Buy your batteries from somewhere where they get it from a battery wholesaler as opposed to an e-cigarette wholesaler, okay? So that's really important, okay? Really important, guys. Play safe. Know your limits. Vape within it, okay? But I've talked enough. Let's just go in, do the build, check it out, and then we'll come back, vape on it, and I'll kind of give you some closing thoughts of how I feel about the build, all right? So let's take it in, my friends. All right, so for the 18 gauge build, you're not going to need a ton of stuff. The main things you're going to need is 18 gauge nichrome 80 wire. You're going to need an atomizer to build it on, so we're going to do the Mutation X because it's an Addy that's kind of readily available. It's nice to have something to build it on. I'm going to build it on this mod because it won't fire when it's sitting against the table. You're going to need a screwdriver to wrap around. This is 2.4 millimeters, also known as 3/32. Then I've got another screwdriver to tighten down my screws. Got some nice wire cutters because this is going to make our job a lot easier. And if we need them, there's going to be some pliers here to pinch up the coils. Also, ohm reader, cotton ball, and ta-da, we're in business, all right? So first things first, let's get started wrapping some wire. I'm going to cut a piece off here, and this stuff is thick, you know? Like this is, I don't know, it's not quite coat hanger, but it's close. 16 gauge is probably kind of coat hanger. I'm going to pull off a nice heavy piece of this here. Bang it all around, all right? Cut that off. Okay, so now we got this nice big piece of wire here, right? Got an ugly end. I just cut off the ugliness. Get rid of it. Don't need that. Now, we're going to be able to put two pieces of this wire in the Mutation X, so that's what we're going to do. You could do this continuous strand, single strand, but yeah, it's not the easiest possible thing, okay? Now, all you really got to do is start wrapping this stuff. So, I'm going to aim for, let's go. All right, so let's get to wrapping this bad boy. The first one's going to be the toughest one to get locked in there for sure. Now, I hold it with my nail and just kind of ream that thing into place and try and keep them going in nice and straight if I can. Keeping tension on it. There's the fourth one. There's the fifth one. I'll throw one more in there for good measure. Why not? All right, so we got 6 wraps in there. Pretty nice and tight. You can give it a little tug if you want. There we go. Tug the other side. Oh, yeah. Feel the burn. There you go. Got one in there. Let's do one more. All right. Same thing here. Get that first one locked in. With 18 gauge, it just kind of wants to draw that leg with it. Man, this is tough today. That got ugly. 4. That's the 5th one. Let's get that 6th one dialed in. Now that first one went way off, right? Just gonna pull that one in. Snug that up. All right. Now with this guy, just gonna push it over. It's easier said than done with 18 gauge. It's pretty firm. Even though it's nichrome wire, it's pretty rigid. And just bring that in. There we go. It's getting there. I'm going to squish this up right now. See if I can correct it before we even start. Put it back on that driver. Push the whole thing one more time. Give it a good pull. There we go. Oh, yeah. And there it is. Got our wraps dialed in. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, if you see, I got like a little curve in both of these. That just, I don't know if I do it on purpose or it just kind of naturally happens when I'm wrapping this wire, but it works pretty good in your center post, okay? So you might want to put one of those slight kinks into it. All right, now we can start putting these through our post holes. Back everything up. Like the boring part right here. Okay. I'm just going to put one of those aside. Now, I like to leave a bunch of this wire on here. You don't really have to. I just like to. Then I'm going to attack it. Push this in. And it's a bit of a chore doing this, okay? It really is. Now, when I get it kind of where I want it, it starts snugging up that negative right there. Just so it doesn't start moving around. Now, it's not set in stone where this thing's going to be. Okay. I can get this other one in here. Bam. Try and run it right beside that one. Okay. Get that negative in there. Come on there, little buddy. This 18 gauge isn't the easiest thing, but you can get it. It's like anything, you know, persistence, right? Getting there. Okay. Yeah, I like to bring it into about there. Just kind of snug it up a bit here. All right. It's kind of sitting to that lip. That's where I go to. Just to that lip. Okay, now I'm going to check on this other one and make sure it's sitting on the lip as well. It's actually pretty close. It could come in just a bit. So we'll bring it in a bit. Right about there. All right, now at this point we could do our center post as well. Just make sure that both of those wires are sitting parallel to one another in there. And you get a nice contact out of it. Now, I just start lifting these wires up a bit. Just to kind of alleviate a little bit of the tension that's underneath these. This is pliers to help me out here. Oh yeah, we're cooking with gasoline now. There we go. I'm just going to lift up that other positive right there and snug it down. Now, if you're looking at this, it's kind of starting to pitch downward. It's kind of starting to slant naturally. And I like that. I kind of dig it because the 18 gauge is pretty thick. I leave it like this. Like I leave my coils like this on the slant and then wick into the deck. Now, you'll see what I'm talking about when we get there. But I'm going to start clipping these legs off. Oh, I'm going to have to pick that up. This is brutal when you step on this stuff, man. She is thick, boy. Now with the positives, what I do is I just kind of get in there and clip as tight as I can. All right, you got to be careful not to clip into that other wire, but practice, man, practice. You'll get it. Now that I said that, I'm probably going to clip off my wire. A lot of times I just kind of miss the clip, and then finally kind of get it. There we go. Sometimes it doesn't even cut all the way and you end up kind of pulling at it and breaking it. There we go. All right. It's kind of weebling and wobbling a bit. Snug her down a little bit. There we go. Okay. Got them in there. Let's check this on the ohm meter before we even start firing it, so you have a bit of an idea. I'm moving some of this stuff out of the way here. I'll bring this right up for you. So reading at 0.06 to 0.07, somewhere in there. Usually when I've built this thing, if it does read the 3 points, it reads at about 0.068. Okay, so it's pretty low. Like it's pushing, it's drawing a lot of amps. And I'm sure a lot of people are saying, okay, well, use your ohm calculator, it's 64 amps. Well, that's why I'm using this battery today, okay? Because the pulse on this battery is 64 amps, and you're not going to need to take huge, long blasts off this guy. I got you, bud. Got you. Now, all we need to do is kind of position this coil a bit. Okay. Kind of got it there. Now, 18 gauge is not really the easiest thing to position, okay? But that one's sitting a little bit low. So I'm going to try and bring it up just a bit. Oh, that was a lot, man. Maybe not that much. Gonna bring it in. Popped out of my screw here. Make sure that's in there, nice. Okay. Then I just tip it down. Okay. And it's just going to sit kind of in towards that deck. I'm going to tip this one a bit here too. You don't want it touching the deck, but in towards it. Bam. So that's kind of how we're going to want it to look. This one's actually a little bit too far out. Let's see if we can bring that in a bit. Yep. No worries. There we go. Bring that up just a bit. Perfect. Okay, that's going to be decent. That is going to be very, very decent. Now, I don't do a lot of pinching and pulsing with this. I just make sure that they all sit beside one another. Pretty good. And if you get your wraps nice, should be all right. It's going to take a bit to kind of warm this coil up, though. Just to get them going. But you don't want to pinch them too tight, or it kind of like mutes them out, like it dulls the coil out. They're big mamas, dude. There we go. That's it. All right. You can give them a couple strums if you want, to kind of even them out. Bam. That's what you're after. Now, it's going to hold the heat for a long time. Like you can see it, they're just still holding heat, still holding heat, still holding heat. Now, that's going to be tough on your insulators, all right? You don't want to pulse these for a ton of time. You don't want to play around with them for too long, okay? Keep that in mind, guys, all right? Now, I got a cotton ball, generic cotton ball. I'm going to peel it. This is kind of a little cotton ball, so I can peel this in half. Some of the bigger cotton balls I usually peel into thirds. Ugly part, just pull that off. All right. I'll rip this probably a little over half on this guy. Just slightly. Okay, get rid of that piece. Now, what I always do with my wicking, man, is just kind of roll it nice and easy and airy. And this is the best thing. Best thing ever. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on this. I'm just creating a cylinder for this and keeping it airy. And this cotton ball is a good one. Like there's no big chunkies in it or anything like that, but this really helps to iron out any chunks that you have. And if there is big chunks or something like that, like let me take this one. Let's say there was a chunk here. I'd kind of just work it out. You know, kind of work it out or tug at it a little bit to get it out, just to get consistent wicking, all right? Super important. All right, got my little cylinder. It's looking pretty, right? I just rip it right in the middle, bam. twist it up. I'm gonna need scissors for this project. Twist that up. Now, you know what? If you got that ugly little straggler at the end, you can twist it up or you could just cut it, you know, whatever you want. That should go in pretty sweet. Now we're just gonna do like these rabbit ears here. Actually, I am gonna need some tweezers for this guy. So I'm just gonna grab this little tail here, bring it in. Once I can grab it with my fingers, I'm golden. Then I just pull it a bit. There it is. Till it feels nice, till it's consistent, you know? Back it up a bit if you want. That's it. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Same spot where we ripped it. Hopefully this isn't like super far away from the camera here. And just same thing, just tuck that in. Grab it. Boom. Once you got a little bit out of the deck, you're good. Kind of keep it fluffy. Just turn it on me. Just get it to a kind of a spot where it's not tight. Like not tight, just kind of semi-tight, you know? Just feels good. That's it. All right. Now, you don't want a ton of this sitting into your deck. You just want it kind of sitting onto the deck and that's it. And that's how I'm going to clip it. Like I'm going to clip it, I don't know, right about there. That should sit onto the deck. Same thing over here. Get rid of those. You don't need a ton, just kind of enough to kind of sit in there and draw juice up. And this thing's gonna scorch, man. And we've gotten this cotton so nice and fluffy. This is the point where a lot of people kind of put folds in it and make a mess of it. Just try and keep it fluffy, all right? That's it. Now, you got these other pieces. What are we gonna do with this? There's a lot of things you could do with this right now. Like you could just clip this and leave, you know, a couple of mils hanging out, and then when you drip, it's gonna drip on there and most of your juice is gonna get wicked up from the base. Or you could take this cotton, kind of tuck it between the posts, something like that. You could do that. Hey, let's do that today. Something different. Same thing over here, just take this piece and fold it in. It looks like a lot of cotton when you're putting it through, but really, it's still just really, really fluffy. And if you do it right, it doesn't collapse on you too much. I'll cut as close as I can to those posts there. There we go. And that, my friends, is how you do it. I'm going to push that down just a bit. Try not to kill it, you know? I'm trying to make these two pieces of cotton kind of flow into one. That's it. Just kind of sit beside it there. Pretty simple, man. Pretty simple. And with the airflow of the Mutation X, we're going to leave it wide open. It should really draw that cyclone, you know? Should really draw it pretty well here. All right. Let's juice this bad boy up. Today I'm dripping Captain Oliver's Admiral Cavendish. Remember, guys, be safe with it, you know? If you've done a bunch of 20 gauge builds, you know, I've done 20 gauge builds for a long time, and I do these once in a while, but it's not my preference, you know? Just a lot of people have asked me about it. Get it nice and saturated. All right. Also want to make sure that I'm not like clogging up my coil too much. Like I want some positive airflow in there, like underneath the coil and coming out. So we can adjust it right now. There we go. Got like a little wind tunnel coming through there. Okay. A little bit more juice on this here. So when you drip, it's just going to go boom, boom, kind of start running down. It's pretty effective, actually. There we go. And she's going to scorch for you. All right, let's have a couple of pulls off this bad boy. It plumes dense, like it plumes dense, thick clouds, but there is a bit of ramp up time when you're vaping it, okay? It's not like 20 gauge. 20 gauge is still my preference. Like I dig 20 gauge a lot better, but that's just me, okay? There's a lot of people who stand true to 18 gauge, all right? If you're new to building, I definitely would not suggest this build. Please don't do it. Like if you're doing 24 gauge builds, do not order 18 gauge. But if you've been playing around with 20 gauge for a long time, and you know your batteries, you know how your mod reacts, you know what's going on, and you want to give it a shot, this build works really, really well. The wicking works really well if you keep it nice and airy. Now, on a Mutation X, with the airflow the way that it is, when you put your coils on that slant, it's really utilizing that slant airflow, and you're kind of just pushing air all the way around your coil, which works really nice. And if it's coming in underneath a little bit, it pops up through that hole where your cotton comes through and just rock and rolls. Like it really kind of smashes in the middle, and it just creates a sick, dense vape, okay? Check it out. You know, if you've been playing around with it, maybe you have 18 gauge and you do 18 gauge builds, try that build out. Like it works decent, all right? One of the main things I would say is when you're pulsing and pinching, tread lightly, all right? One reason is that the 18 gauge holds heat so long that it will melt your insulator like that. Sorry, I got a juice bottle in my hand. It's not working. It'll melt just like that, you know? And you gotta tread lightly. And I found when you do pulse and pinch your coils a lot, what happens is it kind of becomes this hard piece of nichrome, and then you're just trying to zap this thing that almost feels like it has dead spots in it, you know? And there's no amount of strumming your coils that will get rid of that deadness to it, because it's just locked in. Like you cannot strum that out. There's no way. The wire is too thick. You know, it's like wrapping super thick paper clips, you know, like super thick. It's borderline, you know, coat hanger. You know what I mean? Like 16 gauge is like coat hanger. 18 gauge is pretty close, man. But if you do get your wraps nice and tight and uniform as you're wrapping them on the screwdriver, no high spots, they're just consistent wraps, that's going to be the best thing for this build. And then kind of pulse, when you're pulsing and pinching, maybe you just have one spot or an outside wrap that needs to come in, and that's what you're trying to bring in. And you're not pinching it super tight either, just nice and light. That's going to be important. The wicking, as long as you keep it nice and fluffy and airy, it's going to work a lot better. Less is more on this build. I did have that little tail that came over and through the posts, but it wasn't that much, you know? It's really not that much cotton. And if it did collapse, you'd see that it's not a ton of cotton at all. But yeah, that one that kind of comes down and into the juice well, make sure that's just kind of sitting into the juice well, or else if you got folds in it, it's going to restrict and it's not going to perform really well. Like you're going to get hot spots and you're going to get some burnt flavor to your vape, okay? And that's never good, all right? Yeah, just play safe, guys. That's it. A lot of people asked me to share this video, so I did. Here it is, all right? Hopefully you dug it. Hopefully you learned something today. I'm not saying do this build. I would still personally stick to 20 gauge. I just dig the 20 gauge. So much more. Ramp up time is immediate. But if you're going to win a cloud contest or something, I guess you could throw this build in as long as there's no, you know, low resistance, you know, cutoffs on your builds. I know some people have like a build cutoff when they have contests, like it's like, oh, 0.2 is the lowest resistance or 0.14. You know, if it's something like that, you're definitely not going to bring this build, okay? Because it is kind of, it's around 0.07. That's what it comes in at, is just 0.068 is what I found personally. Around that diameter and, you know, that many reps. That's how it works, all right? Now you are pushing, with that build, you're pushing over 60 amps, okay? You are pushing about 62 amps, I believe it is, if we're talking full battery voltage, all right? With no battery sag, but that's a different video altogether, all right? I'm going to give it a whirl with one of those cloud crunch things if I can. I'm kind of sitting down. It doesn't work that well, but hey, whatever. Let's give it a hit. Does work well, guys. All right, thanks for chilling out with me. Thanks for sitting through the video. Hopefully you dug it. If you didn't, whatever. And if you're going to tell me you get an Ohm's Law calculator, yeah, I got it. Thanks, guys. Anyway, remember, guys, butt out, vape up, and breathe easy. Know your limits and vape within it. And you, right there, my friend, you right there are going to have a stellar day. All right, catch you on the next one. One more pull, and we out.